Hi, I'm Dale.
And I'm Michael.
And welcome to
Spotted Motors.
And welcome to the Spotted Motors E90 BMW 3 Series Owners Review. I've had this car for about a year and a half now, Michael, so I thought puts me in good shape to do an owners review, what these cars like to own and what they like to drive on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk you through the common faults, what goes wrong, and how easy they are to fix or how hard they are to fix.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you get the best of both worlds here. You're going to get an owner's side of it and a mechanic side of it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Right, Michael, you set the ramp up. I'll have a quick walk on the car. So, quick sort of history on these cars. These are E90. This is what we're going to be concentrating on today. These cars also come in a coupe, a convertible, and also a touring. This is a 318, which is the sort of the lower end or the low spec you can get in a 3 Series of an E90. They go up from a 320, 325 and a 330. They also do diesels as well, which is a 318, 320, 325 and a 330 as well. This one here is the facelift model. So the range ran from 04 right up until 2011, which this one is, and on 2008 they did the facelift model, which is quite hard to spot. The easiest way to spot them is the double sort of bulge in the bonnet and also the rear lights as well. They're stepped down over, which looks older in my eyes. They also have a more aggressive front bumper and a more aggressive rear bumper as well. This one is a performance edition, which is basically an M Sport. The range is ES and SE, a performance edition, and then the range topper, which is the M Sport. The performance edition to the M Sport, it's exactly the same. It's got the bumpers, the wheels, even the seats. All it doesn't have is the suspension, which I'll get to that in a minute. I prefer. The M Sports sit really, really low, and driving them around town and things like that, they do like scraping speed ramps, where this one, it just sits a little bit higher and it drives a little bit more comfortable as well, especially because these cars have such low profile tyres. The sport suspension like exaggerates that, so a performance edition is definitely the one to go for me. So let's have a walk around the car and I'll show you inside, show you a couple of features inside, and then talk you through the engine specs as well. So as mentioned, this is the performance edition, but for the sake of the video I'm going to call it the M Sport, just because it's easier for me to say it. Comes with the 18-inch MV3 alloy wheels, which again Michael will touch on these later on in the video. Talking about them rear lights, see how they're stepped? That is the telltale way of telling the facelift model. The bumpers are quite hard to tell the difference between the two of them, but that's the easiest way to tell a facelift model. Again, an 08 and the reg plate will give that away. While we're at the back of the car, we'll have a look at the boot. I've done it again, Michael. Do an owner's review and I never open the car up. So there we are. That's wasted 10 seconds of the video, hasn't it? So in the boot. So owner's review kicks off right here, because the first thing I would like to say is that they're quite a narrow boot. It's quite hard to fit anything in there. Any boxes or anything like that is really, really difficult. So when it comes to being a family car, take in mind that this space here isn't that big. Also the boot space itself isn't ideal. An Audi A4 would swamp that. So it's just a little polite note there. While we're at the rear end of the car, space in the rear again isn't as big as an Audi A4, say for example, but it's a very comfy place to sit. Headroom for an adult, that's where you might struggle ever so slightly. Another point I'd like to make is, if you've got a car seat and it's Isofix are extremely hard to find. It's not, you've got the little Isofix here, but they're really tucked right underneath, and you can see the struggle I've got there lifting that up to get the Isofix in. Most cars have a little cut out in the seat, so it's extremely difficult to get Isofix in, and make sure that obviously, you know, you're carrying children, so you want to make sure that they're in exactly that, but they're quite difficult to find sometimes. Venturing inside, Interiors are very well put together. These cars are absolutely solid. When they're driving them, you get no rattles, no bangs. The interiors are very well put together. These are M Sport seats, but because it's a business, a performance edition, they are cloth, which I prefer. They're very hugging, and they're very comfortable as well. Driving positions, if you can't find a driving position that's comfortable in this car, there's definitely something wrong. There's so much adjustment on these seats. They go really low, they go really high. Again, once with the steering, it comes out, it comes up and down, it does all sorts. So if you can't find a driving position in this car, try a little harder, because you definitely should be able to. Oh. When it comes to controls, they're very easy. You've got the heater here, which is basically just heat up, fan down, and then it's just a turn of the knob there, and that turns the temperature up. It's quite simple when it comes to that, because other cars do complicate things. And again with the radio as well, it's a very simple thing to use. But I suppose looking at it now, it does look quite dated to compared to newer cars and newer models. As for firing it up, I've lost the key. As for firing it up, it's key in the dash, and then it's a starter button to fire it up. That is a noise that you're going to get used to when it comes to BMWs, because it pings for absolutely everything. Every time there's something wrong with the car, it makes that noise, and they're quite sensitive. Again, Michael will touch on with this in a second. It does have an onboard computer, which is a little bit complicated. You've got to sort of scroll through it, and there's that many sub-settings within. It's quite hard, and once you press the wrong button, you don't know where you're at, and it just goes back to the start. Again, with the service information, it's all on there, but it's so difficult to understand, and not all of them get reset when you do take them to the garages. So this always is springing up that it needs a service, but it actually doesn't. So when buying, it's a very complicated thing to get your head round. One nice feature on this is a very funky cup holder that pops out here. Don't know if BMW planned this, but put your cup in here. Whether it's a hot drink, the vent keeps it hot, and again in the summer, flick it onto aircon, get the aircon on, and it keeps your drink nice and cool. Whether that BMW meant to do that, I don't know. 6-speed manual. The 6-speed manual for me is a little bit sloppy. The throw is quite a long throw when it comes to changing gear, and again it's just that little bit sloppy. And reverse on these cars, if you're not used to it, you have to bang it over. It feels a little bit alien doing that if you're used to sort of pressing them down or pulling them up, but yeah, you have to really bang it across and flick it up over. And again with the clutches, they're quite springy, so if you're not used to a springy clutch, then you know that's again, it's hard to get a smooth pull off in first gear. But we will take this car for a spin in a split second, and we'll talk about the steering, the feel and the handling. But apart from that, that's the interior done. Oh, one thing, the BMWs of old have always had the electric window buttons here, which are fantastic because everything's already here. This one, it's tucked all the way down there, so they can be quite hard to find sometimes. Again, it's only something very minor, but you do have to stretch sometimes to get to them. So Michael, I'm going to go for a quick spin, and when I get back we'll get it on the ramp and you can talk us through common faults and what they like to maintain.
We're actually going to fix one of them common faults as well, aren't
we?
We
are, Michael, yeah. That's that's what we've done this video for, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, no worries, mate, yeah.
Awesome. So BMW used to call their cars the ultimate driving machine. Let's see if that still takes effect today. Now this is basically a 4-door family saloon, but with it being rear-wheel drive and with it having a BMW chassis, they still drive fantastically well. Now one thing to note is that the steering is quite heavy, especially at slower speeds. I don't mind that because it gives it a real good feel. When you get driving on the motorway and stuff like that. It does loosen it up a little bit, and the power steering sort of kicks in a little bit more. Electric power steering. So again, the throw on the gearbox is quite long. It doesn't really give you a sort of sporty feel with the gearbox, but once you get it up to speed through 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th gear, it's very smooth really. Cabin noise is extremely quiet, and engine and wind noise extremely quiet, and like I say, driving position in this car is very, very comfortable. Armrest positions are absolutely fantastic. So sometimes first gear can be a little bit awkward to set off, especially when you're first getting used to these cars, but once moving there's no issues whatsoever. It's very, very revvy engine, they're very long-legged, if that makes sense. The revs don't whiz round, it takes a long time for them to hit that 6,500 RPM limit, but again, I think these are more of an autobahn car than they are a town car. But on a B road, this is a fantastic car. The steering is so precise, and it does turn in extremely well. It is a rear wheel drive, and a 318, I don't think you'll have any problems with the back end stepping out. So grip is really, really good. They're 255 on the rears of this car, so that's a big lot of rubber you are putting down. One point that I don't like about this car is that it doesn't have an internal temperature gauge for the engine, so you don't know how warm or how cold the engine is. Now, I like changing my driving style if the engine is still relatively cold, so it's nice to know whereabouts the engine is in temperature before you drive it a little bit harder, for example. So that's one downside that I don't like about the car. So as mentioned, this is the Performance Edition, so it's basically the M Sport body kit on an SE or an ES. I actually prefer this model over the M Sport. The M Sport suspension is that slightly bit harder, and it does make more of a bouncy and more of a thud to the suspension when going over any potholes and stuff like that. So although the Performance Editions are slightly rarer than the M Sport, there's a lot of M Sport models out there, I prefer the ride on the Performance Edition over an M Sport. Although they do look fantastic, they do sit slightly lower, and the wheels seem to, you know, fill their arches that little bit better on an M Sport. Nice big chunky steering wheel as well, which again makes you feel like you're driving something a bit more sportier. But yes, driving one of these on a daily basis is an absolute pleasure really. The 3 Series BMW has always been a market leader. It's always fought against the C-Class and the Audi A4. Sorry about my phone. I prefer the 3 Series BMW. I love the rear wheel drive, and I love how solid these cars are. I just wish that a 320 was a 6-cylinder, because I think that would be one of the best selling cars. You see more 318s and 320 diesels on the road nowadays, and the 325 is, you know, more of a sportier car, with it having the 2.5 straight 6 in it. You've got a lot more performance. I just think the performance gap between the 318 or the 320 and the 325 is too big of a gap really. So there you have it. Overall, a fantastic car, and Spotted Motors definitely gives this the thumbs up. We're going to head back to the garage now and let Michael tell you all about the maintenance side of this car, what they like to fix, and the common problems on these cars. So Michael's just going to set the ramp up to get this car in the air. I'm going to get under the bonnet and tell you a little bit about the engine specs. So this is a 2 litre inline 4-cylinder. It powers the rear wheels, and these engines are tucked quite far back into the bulkhead. There's one advantage and there's one disadvantage with that. The one advantage is that it gives you excellent handling. The weight distribution of the car is more into the centre of the car, and it's not hanging over the front axle. The disadvantage of this is that it does make the cabin slightly smaller. I prefer the engine tucked further back. It does make this car handle a lot better, which I mentioned on the test drive there. So again, yeah, this is the 2 litre 4-cylinder, 140 horsepower. I think it's 0 to 60 times about 9.5 seconds, which isn't fantastic, but the top speed, more autobahn car, isn't it? You know, 130 mile an hour top speed. The one thing that did disappoint me with this E90 is that they dropped the 6-cylinder on the 320. So the 320 is also a 2 litre inline 4. As old, especially with the E46, the 320 was a 2.2 straight 6, which is absolutely phenomenal engine, and these 3 Series suit a 6-cylinder engine absolutely perfectly. They're an absolutely wonderful car with a 6-cylinder, so you have to go up to the 325 for that and the 330 for that as well.
Right, I'm going to take over now and tell you a little bit more about the technical side of these cars, what to look out for when you're buying them. So this is a 318 petrol, as Dale's already said. They're a time and chain engine. Pretty good on the petrols. The diesels can be a bit troublesome in that the chains, stretch and can snap. So that is something you do need to be aware of when you're buying the diesel version of this. Other than that, they are a pretty good engine, pretty easy to maintain. The problem with these, like most modern cars now, they don't have a dipstick, so when you are buying them you can't dip, check the condition of the oil. That's all done through the dashboard, which I personally don't like, but that's the way they are. Another thing, you can't see the coolant level. To see the coolant level you have to take the lid off the bottle, which is okay if the car's cold, but obviously when it's hot you can't check the condition or the level of the coolant. But other than that, servicing is pretty easy. Oil filters on the top, easy enough to fill up with oil. Just use the right grade oil. BMWs like the right grade oil in them. Spark plugs can be a bit of an issue, because as Dale's already said, the engine's sat right far back in the bulkhead. You do have to remove quite a bit of stuff, but it does come off easy, you know. And BMWs like to use spark plugs that need a certain socket, so you may have to buy the socket. They're not expensive, and you get them from most tool suppliers. It's just something to look out for if you've got all your service bits there and you're ready to service your car and you haven't got the socket. It's going to hold you up. So yeah. So another common fault, especially with this car, and I suppose with all cars really, is the calipers. They do tend to stick on, especially in the winter months, if they're not getting used for a couple of days. But I know this car in particular, we've put 2 calipers on it already, so it is a common fault with them. The water gets behind the seal of the piston, and once that happens, you know, they need replacing. So that's another one. As Dale mentioned about, I don't know if he did mention about the wheels, but these wheels are prone to cracking. And now that's still a lot to do with the low profile tyre as well. And do these have run flats on?
Standard with run flats,
Standard with run flats. A run flat tyre, the stiffest tyre, so it doesn't take no impact out of the potholes or anything, and it just cracks the alloy. There's no give in the tyre, and it cracks. I've seen loads of alloys that these MV3s, yeah, I've seen loads of these crack and get repaired or get changed out. While we're on wheels and brakes, ABS sensors, very common fault with these cars, and once they start playing up, it basically puts a car into a limp mode. It thinks a car's skidding out and it isn't, so it sort of applies brake pressure to different brakes and does all wacky stuff, but it makes the car pretty much undrivable. And we are actually going to do the ABS sensors on this car today. Arches, bodywork, these are pretty good compared to the older E46s and stuff like that. These don't tend to rust. If they do, it tells you that they haven't really been maintained very well, they haven't been washed, or the other thing, have they been damaged, have they been in an accident, been repaired. So just keep an eye out for that. These arches don't rust like the old ones did. So yeah, there you go, there's the most common problems with these cars. Like I said, we've just done all 4 ABS sensors on this car, because the float lights, and they don't store them in the memory, so rather than messing on, we just thought to change all 4. But yeah, another thing when you're buying these, obviously service history, good service history is a must. They've got to be well maintained, otherwise you're going to have problems with them. But other than that, I think that's all. They are a really good cars if they're well maintained. They're really good and nice and easy to work on as well. So nothing scary. Yeah, that's about it from me.
So that sort of wraps up our owner's review and a mechanical point of view on the E90 3 Series BMW. And as Michael pointed out, keep up with the maintenance, keep up with the service book, and this should be quite a reliable car. As for owner's point of view, would I tell someone to buy one? Definitely so, yeah. There's so many specs, models, colours, engine choices out there. You should be able to find a second-hand one for you that fits your build and fits your criteria in a way. I absolutely love this car. As pointed out in the test drive, it's rear-wheel drive, the steering's absolutely fantastic. I'd like a slightly punchier engine, as this one is a little bit, underpowered. Sorry, we were rudely interrupted there by the compressor. Not to worry, but yeah, I've just mentioned that it's a little bit underpowered for a medium-sized family car. But there you go. Thumbs up from me, Michael. Is it a thumbs up for you?
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, definitely a thumbs up from me. And like you say, it's a great family car, isn't it?
Yeah,
great family car.
Awesome. So yeah, something different from us. We haven't done anything like this for a good year or two now. We're normally into the drag cars and all that type of stuff. So if you do like what you see and you do like me and Michael and what we have got up to today, then have a look at the back catalogue, get subscribed and get involved with Spotted Motors. Michael?
That just leaves us to say,
as always,
thanks very much for watching.
We've been
Spotted Motors.
Michael, thank you very much for doing my sensors.